Three, two, one. ESBR Boxing. We are back. Myself and Niall. We are in review mode. We've just uh, enjoying the trial taking place in Monte Carlo between Cordina and Vasquez. Cordina has won for the IBF, well, to retain his IBF title, so featherweight title. 116, 112 on two of the judges' scorecards, and 114, 114 on the third. So majority decision victory. Niall, without further ado, really let's get straight into it. I think Tony Bellew on comms had it quite close, didn't he? Some people on the Twitter sphere had it quite close as well. Some people saying it was sort of around sort of 10, 11. There was sort of one round in it, maybe. I think Bellew had it almost even going into the last. How did you score it first and foremost?
I scored a draw, to be honest. I think Cordina is lucky to kind of get away with that, especially the 116, 112 card I thought was totally unfair on Vasquez. You know, Vasquez was very upset there at the end, and rightly so. It's just a bit too wide. So I had it the same as the third judge, 114, 114, and he fought a brilliant fight. I think he surprised everyone, Vasquez, with how well he fought. I predicted Cordina to kind of win that without having to go through the gears, really. But credit to Vasquez, he was brilliant there tonight.
No, I think to be honest, you're exactly right. I think people have watched this channel and seen. I was on, on the prediction show. I had Cordina stoppage. I thought it was going to be quite routine stoppage, frankly. Seeing obviously the Agawa power that he had, and also the size difference, which was noticeable in the fight as well. For you, was it? I mean, I've seen some people say that Cordina's punches were possibly a bit more significant, even though Vasquez possibly had better activity. Was that how you would you agree with that as well, or did you think it was literally a sort of split on activity and punch effectiveness?
Yeah, I think it was such a hard fight to score. As you say, you have the kind of the activity of Vasquez and the effectiveness of Cordina's shots. But I loved Vasquez shots. The big hooks that rocked the head back of Cordina. The working close. Although Cordina can hold, he's proved now in two fights in a row that he can hold his own up close as well. But yeah, the big eye catching headshots from Vasquez and the body work from Cardina, the sharp body work, the jab when he did use it, when he did kind of use his boxing IQ and technical proficiency, I thought was brilliant. So yeah, I thought it was such a hard fight to score, but it was a great fight. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Did you think it was a case of both fighters being actually evenly matched, both fighters putting on a good performance? Do you think that Cordina was possibly a bit under par coming into this fight, or that Vasquez went? Obviously, I agree with you. I think Vasquez obviously surprised a lot of people as well. And I've heard other comments around, the venue size, a smaller crowd may have obviously played into it as well. Obviously, different if you're defending a title, maybe at Millennium Stadium or something. But just assess Cordina's performance tonight. Do you think it was a tough opponent that he did well to beat, or do you think it was a bit below par? How did you appraise that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I started that fight by thinking, is Cardina kind of taking these unnecessary risks because he can? He knows that he's not in much danger, that he can he's expected to cruise through this, so he thinks, right, I'll sit in the pocket for a bit, have a tear up with him, and just kind of keep himself entertained and keep the crowd entertained, knowing that he should win comfortably. But I think that was a bit of a disrespectful kind of knock on Vasquez there, because he proved as the fight went on that he wasn't he was well worth his money in there, and he's well worth his kind of place at world level now after that. So yeah, I just think maybe Cardina was a bit off par, but Vasquez proved why he belongs tonight at world level. So yeah, credit to him.
No, I totally agree with you. Actually, I think I'd like to see Vasquez actually in future fights. I thought it was an exciting style, come forward style, which is very exciting to watch. Let's just pick up on Cordina, I suppose, before we depart here. We'll just talk a bit about him in the division and maybe going forward. He's mentioned before that he wants unification, big fights on the horizon, other fights, potential British super fights with guys in the division below coming up, which we'll talk about secondly. But first, I want to ask you a bit about just in the actual division and unification fights. Obviously, other champions you've got in that division. Shaki Foster obviously had a fight recently, which is, I think, fairly fortunate to come through, and you got the stoppage didn't he, late there in that fight. You've got Hector Luis Garcia, and you've got Emmanuel Navarrete. Where would you put Cordina on that list of those four champions were he to have a unification fight? Do you think he'd how do you reckon he get on against either of those guys, and which is his best option to a unification victory?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think my answer not before tonight would have been a lot more conclusive, that I think he'd beat them all. In terms of talent, I think he's probably more well-rounded than all of them. And I think it has to be unification next. I'd love to see unification. You know, he's 31 now. Cordina, he's been going a while, and I want to see the real legacy defining fights in at 130 against the likes of Sheikh Foster or Garcia or Navarrete. For me is the one that I'd love to see. Joe Cordina and Navarrete. You know, I think stylistically that'd be an amazing fight. I know tonight didn't really do kind of much. Cordina's kind of hopes for them much good in people's eyes, but I still think if Joe Cordina is on it 100%, I think he beat them all, and hopefully we get to see it next. As I say, if I had to choose, I'd say Cordina and Navarrete for me is the one.
Oh, I'd love to see that. I would love to see that fight as well. Um, Close fight. I'd actually probably lean slightly towards Navarrete in that one, but I'd have Chef Cordina over the other champions in the division as well who were to fight those. Let's just touch on the super fight that has been kind of muted between Cordina and Lee Wood. Obviously, Lee Wood vacated, hasn't he, his title after his recent victory down at the featherweight division. Talk of him stepping up and maybe fighting Joe Cordina. Let's just get straight into it now. To be perfectly honest with you, how do you, after tonight? I mean, after what we've seen, see both men's careers over the last sort of couple of years play out in very successful ways. Who would you lean towards? Who would you make slight favourite in that fight?
Yeah, I'll just start on that by saying I think I have a feeling that fight will happen next for some reason. I think it makes sense. You know, I know you were actually one of the first ones on a previous video we done to mention that fight possibly happening, and now it's kind of it's being talked about by a lot more people. So I think it does. It makes the most sense, and I can see it happening. You know, the All British clash, two world champions. So I can see that happening. Although I want the Navarrete fight, but if it was Cardina against Lee Wood, I can't see Lee Wood beating him. And I know plenty of people have written off Lee Wood before. I've done it a lot of times against Warrington most recently, and he's kind of surprised us. But I think Joe Cardina is levels above anyone Lee Wood's faced, and I think Cardina beat him. Wide decision. A wide
Why
decision on
this is
late stoppage. Yeah. Wood has the power, and of course he has, as I say, he can pull it out of fire when needed. But I just think there's levels to it, and Cardina is just too classy from.
it feels cruel actually now to do this, but I was going to say if I could push you on whether you think it would be a decision for Cordina, whether you think it'd be a stoppage. If you had to put money on it now, which way would you lean towards that fight? Stoppage or points?
I'll take points, yeah, fairly wide points, kind of 116, 112, 117, 111. You know, I just think Cordina's a level above. I say no disrespect to Lee Wood, he's proved so many people wrong, but yeah, I can see that fight happening next, and I think Cordina decisions him a fairly wide margin.
Where would you no, I'd love to see that fight next as well, actually. Like you said, the Navarrete in that fight, the two that I'd love to see. Where would you I mean, so you're sitting in Matchroom HQ, you're looking to make that fight. Where would you like to see that fight happen? Would you think that's one for sort of Millennium Stadium sort of area, or do you reckon that's sort of UK and in England? Where would you like to see that fight take place?
I think that'd be a great fight for the City Ground in Nottingham. I think it's the perfect opponent, you know, good domestic opponent for Lee Wood to kind of fill out the City Ground, and Joe Cordina bring a lot of fans down himself from Wales. But if it was to be in Wales, you know, a stadium in Wales, I think it'd do great business as well, and plenty of Nottingham fans would go up to that. So yeah, but I think City Ground, Nottingham from there, I'd like to see.
No, no, look, no, I totally agree with you. To be perfectly honest with you, I think from a British perspective, I'd love to see that fight next. The super fight in the UK would be absolutely superb between both guys. Both guys very well supported, very exciting styles, and it's a very close matchup. I know you say it'd be wide points, Cordina, but I think it'd be almost 50-50, 40, 55, 45 kind of people be sort of picking it either way. It'd be a very close fight. Niall, I want to thank you for that. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your staying up late with us here to discuss this and review this as eloquently and as insightfully as you have done there. Guys, obviously check out the channel over the coming weeks. We've got other stuff obviously coming up, further reviews, previews of other fights in the upcoming boxing calendar. But all that's left to say really is, Niall, thank you very much. And as always, guys, thank you for watching.
Cheers, thanks.